Today on Know How.
It's the first episode of the gaming series, starting with tips and tricks for your consoles.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Know How is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Take back your internet privacy today. For 3 months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/knowhow. And by IT Pro TV, flexible and entertaining training for your IT career. Visit itpro.tv/knowhow and use code KNOWHOW30 to get a free 7-day trial and 30% off a monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. Welcome to Know How. This series, well, basically Megan Moroney wrapped up her series. She spent 3 months with Florence Ion doing Internet of Things. That's the past. The future is video games. I'm Jason Howell, and I'm here with Sam Miskovich from Ars Technica. How you doing, Sam?
I'm ready to know how to game. I'm here to accept your wisdom. No, I'm really excited. Having been on Twit many times, but never really in the flesh. And what better way for me to kick off than with one of my favorite expertises, which is gaming. And we have a lot of segments to dig through.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff, a lot of ground to cover. When I was thinking about like what I wanted to spend the next 3 months of my life on Know How diving into, I thought, let's do something fun. Gaming, obviously, you know, in the world of technology is about as fun as it gets, right? And then it was like, well, who do I do this with? You were right at the top of the list because you know so much about this stuff. That's why we brought you on to Tech News Weekly so many times to talk about the gaming world. And you cover it so well for Ars Technica. So really stoked to have you out here for this series.
What's cool about a segment like this is, one, I get to cover some ground I'm really familiar with, but there's a couple of things, even in this episode, that are a bit news to me. It's a chance to brush up on sort of stuff I really like. So I say we dive right in. What do we have on the plate for this first installment?
Well, so this is the first episode, and we thought we'd kind of start things off with consoles, because I would say, you know, as far as gaming is concerned, consoles is the easier thing for people to get into. We're, you know, a little bit later, probably next week, definitely next week, we're going to talk about kind of gaming rigs, and you can get really nerdy, really into the weeds with gaming rigs. Consoles are set up to be just a little bit more attainable, a little bit more achievable for the everyday gaming enthusiast.
What's interesting is because they are advertised as a sort of plug and play thing, but sometimes there's more to it than just plugging and playing. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us to dive in a little bit on some of the weeds and tricks and extra little things to bring out the most of your plug and play system, to plug and play a little better.
Yeah, so when we were kind of planning out this episode, it was like, well, you know, tips and tricks, and we came up with this mountain of tips and tricks. And it was like, okay, well, obviously we can't do every single one of these. So you had the great idea of like picking out one tip or trick for each of the 3 major consoles. That's the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch. And, you know, I should give some background. Like, I have a history as a gamer back in the day, in air quotes. I am not a modern gamer. I don't own any of the most recent consoles. Obviously, you own them all.
Own them all, yes.
So I'm relying on you as far as these tips were concerned. I'm like, these all sound like really neat things that you can do with your consoles. You selected a few for us to kind of dive into and show off. So maybe you know some of these, maybe you don't. But we thought we'd kind of cover some things. So let's start with the Xbox One. And actually, I'm going to grab my controller here because hopefully the HDMI gods are shining on us properly today. If we go ahead and switch over to the Xbox One that we have connected here, what we want to kind of show off is how easy it is to actually do game streaming from your Xbox One to a Windows 10 machine. Why would someone want to do this?
I think it's a really cool way. Chances are you have a Windows computer. We understand some people don't. Keep it down. We get it. But Windows 10 being a pretty popular computer, especially, or computer system that you could have anywhere in your home on a laptop and so on. Right. So maybe you want to take the gaming power that's already in your Xbox and simply beam it to another room in the house. And so beaming from a dedicated Xbox to a Windows 10 machine means you don't have to get a whole nother gaming system. You don't necessarily have to soup up your Xbox system in order to play games in other rooms. So it's a cool little trick just to get more games in different rooms of your house.
Yeah, totally. Not need more than one console. Why? When you've got a Windows 10 machine. So if we cut to the Xbox One, you can see I went into the settings, or I'm going into settings rather.
Well, remember, let's back up because you got to tap that Xbox button.
Oh, that's true.
There's some, you know, it used to be with Xbox One a real pain in the butt, but now you can just tap that big Xbox glowing button.
There we go.
And at the top you see that gear at the right. So no matter what, you can get to settings by just going all the way to right in that menu.
Here, let me show you one more time because I messed it up. All right, there we go. All right, so settings. Right. Then this is going to take us into preferences. What you're looking for is the Xbox app connectivity section. Go ahead and dive into there. And you can see here you're given a couple of different trees, other devices. And what you want in this section, you want to be able to allow connections from any device or from profiles signed on this, or signed into on this Xbox. But I'm going to go ahead and do from any device. And then over in this Xbox area, make sure that allow game streaming to other devices is selected. And then I've done this, and then I assume if I go out here, I'm probably going to be, like, it's already saved at that point, right?
Just instant saved. You're good to go on that end of it. And now we've got a Windows 10 machine.
Yeah, so now we got to switch over to the Windows 10. This is actually, the laptop that we're using is the Lenovo Legion Y530. I'd say it's kind of a lower, it's probably like a $700 gaming laptop. Yeah, $629 to start. 15-inch display, Core i5, 2.30 gigahertz.
Perfectly serviceable, but maybe not going to play Shadow of the Tomb Raider or
totally.
Like that.
Very serviceable for what we're going to show off, and probably for basic gaming. But yeah, you know, your mileage may vary. So let's go ahead and hop over to the screen there. On my Windows 10 PC, I'm going to launch the Xbox app, which is kind of what you're looking at here.
And if you haven't gotten to the Xbox app, it's actually really easy. There's that bar at the bottom, the Cortana bar. You can just type Xbox, and that app should be the first thing. Boom. You didn't even have to type all of it. No. So that's a really quick way to get to that app.
Right on. Okay, so we're in there. On the left side of the panel, I'm going to search for the Connections tab, which is over right here. Go ahead and jump on.
And by the way, a tip on that hamburger at the top left, if you don't know what those mean, tapping that hamburger brings out the names of them.
Ah, very nice.
So for any reason you forgot, or you're not just watching this while doing it, the hamburger's there for you.
Right, I kind of had to know that was there, but the hamburger definitely does help. So you can see right here, because the Xbox One and the Windows 10 PC are on the same network, it's recognizing the Xbox One on that network, and this is what I want to connect to.
And we didn't do anything really crazy. We weren't really setting this up and testing it out. That is, and if it messes up, that's a result as well. So fingers crossed.
So I selected the name of the console, waited for it to connect. From there, I can just go ahead and launch game streaming. I'll go ahead and tap the stream. It's going to connect to the Xbox One. Now, what you're going to see is actually the stream. There are no controllers. Oh, that's going to stream through from the Xbox One. So what you see looks like the Xbox One, but that's actually coming from the Windows 10 device. It's streaming through live in real time.
Do you want to tap those buttons on the keyboard, up, down, left, right, down here? And see if that moves it around?
It doesn't look like it is.
No. It looks like you're going to need to get a controller plugged in. I don't think you're going to want to definitely have a controller when you are at your house doing this.
Oh, I see. Because right now this controller is connected to the Xbox One. If this was in a different room, it might not connect.
And now, the nice thing about that Xbox One controller is that it's got a micro USB port right there, which means you should, if you've got an Android phone, you've got one of those cords, boom, plug that in.
Yeah.
Many Windows machines, not all of them, I don't know about this one, come with that Xbox controller wireless protocol so that you can actually sync them up. There's also a dongle you can buy. There are options for using wireless controllers on a Windows 10 machine. So however you want to go about and do that, you've got options.
Nice. And then, by default, I just load Fortnite because it's the game that I recognize nowadays. And it's the game that everybody's playing.
And it runs very smoothly. You know what? You might have better luck running it smoothly on that Xbox machine than Windows 10. So there you go.
Yeah, okay. And we actually don't even need to jump into it. But this is just to kind of prove to you that things are streaming through. And if you got a Windows 10 device hanging around, hey, you can stream your Xbox One right to it, and that's native out of the box.
The performance is going to vary. If everything is wired, that'll run fastest. If it's not wired, you'll lose a little bit of that twitchiness. Having the Xbox and Windows 10 plugged in via Ethernet is not necessarily convenient, but that will get you a little bit better latency. But for a lot of games, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Totally. Right on. Okay. So that was really, really easily done. Now the PS4, this is a little different, and this is where I show that I don't really have a whole lot of friends, because this one requires you to have friends that you're connected to in the PlayStation Network, which, I mean...
I'm his only friend.
And you're here. Yeah. Like, this just isn't going to work. So we don't have a step-by-step to really show you on this one. But it is a really cool feature that allows one person to basically share the game that they own with another person virtually. And when you told me that this was possible, like out of the box, like I guess in my mind I just kind of always assumed they're gonna pull you in for as much money as they can and not let someone share a game virtually. But apparently they do.
PS4 Share Play is what it says. You're playing a game on your home system. You've got a friend who's interested in that game. It could be Spider-Man, which just came out on PS4, and your friend just wants to try it out. And there's a step-by-step process to letting that friend, if you're both online, only one of you has to have PlayStation Plus, and that's really about it stipulation-wise. Otherwise, we go through step-by-step, and you can share that gameplay where they use their own controller and play the game as if they're you.
That's awesome. And yeah, and there's different ways to do this, right? Like you could, once you have Share Play set up, you could just share the screen so that someone can watch what you're doing. You can give them the ability to play for you temporarily, and then of course that broadens out if both of you have PlayStation Plus subscriptions. Then you can play, of course, multiplayer using the same copy against each other at the same time.
One copy, two friends.
That is so cool.
Versus, yeah, pretty good.
That is really cool. All right, so it's hard to, like I said, show this off step by step, but yeah, you might as well just show this while we talk about it. But basically, you want to set up Share Play, which involves you inviting a friend into a party. If you go to the home screen, you can actually pull them in into a party there. And then you want to load up your game, and there is a share button on the actual controller.
Right. Yeah,
so it really makes it really kind of easy. You got the share button up at the top.
The share button is often used just to take snapshots, but if you want to do more than just take an image of the screen, that's the button you'd go to get to some of those menus we just showed.
Yeah, boop, that takes you to Share Play, you select your friend, and then that links you and your friend together after kind of doing that. And those sessions last for 60 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So 60 minutes, and that can be renewed. So if you run out of 60 minutes, you just need to like refresh that again, and you could do this eternally for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Or until your PS4
It's just one of those limits that they put in there in case someone forgets to turn it off.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So if you want to have a friend play for you, you're going to need, you're going to need a PlayStation Plus subscription. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, I think, in a few segments away. But when you go into that Share Play menu, there's an option to give the controller to a visitor, as you can see there, and then you allow the visitor to play for you, and that allows you to let them like take over. And of course, there's a way to take back the controller once you're done.
Yes.
And then finally, if you want to play multiplayer from that Share Play menu, there's a selection for give the controller to the visitor, and then you can play the game together. And so it's really, it's all done within that share button, makes it really easy. Are a lot of people using this functionality? Because this is not new necessarily. This has been there for quite a while.
Sony doesn't really give out that sort of stat, but anecdotally, it's a really nice option to get that taste. It's obviously better to have that game loaded on your own system whenever possible, but we're in a streaming world. There's other streaming services. We may get to some of those in a bit, but that's an option where you can at least try before you buy and have that friend there and do that two-player stuff. It's nice to have. As long as you both have good internet connections, you're good to go. It's not necessarily going to be the best if you're on old DSL, but it'll work even then. It'll be a little blurry.
Oh, okay. All right. So then we've got the Nintendo Switch. Now, you brought your colorful Nintendo Switch. I have Anthony's Nintendo Switch that I've been borrowing. By the way, I love this thing. I've actually, I've been researching for all of these episodes for the past month, researching for a video game series
Research is what he calls it. He's just leveling up.
I love it. I love it. And I gotta say, the Switch is so cool. Like, there's just something really magical about popping out the controllers and being like, here, I've got a two-player system.
But this was the tip that I think I fed you, because I think this is really cool. You don't have to just play on your own region. So anybody who's played with a modern gaming system with its own downloadable shop probably has run into an issue where you have to put in your specific region, North America, Japan, Europe, and so on and so forth. This is one of the only, certainly in this generation, only region-free system. You can take cartridges from anywhere in the world or downloadable games from anywhere in the world.
That's so cool.
But for the latter case, the issue is how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you actually set it up? And I think since you've never done it before, I think you're up for setting it up. I can obviously walk you through it myself, but I already have mine set up on mine.
Yeah, so here, let me just say it because it involves setting up a brand new account on a desktop. And I'm realizing now I had some of that work done in the other room and I don't have it in here. But thankfully you have the after and I have the before. And so what it really amounts to is on your Nintendo Switch, you need to have set up a Nintendo account, a totally separate Nintendo profile account that has like Japan as one example, as the region that you plug into as the default region, right?
Yeah.
And it's free to set up those accounts. If you go to the My Nintendo account, just do a search for that, for setting up a new account, and fill it out. Maybe give yourself a nickname that is obvious, like whatever your normal nickname is with Japan at the end of it, or something along those lines so you can keep track of it later. But fill this out, a brand new profile on top of the one you already have, and make sure that country, region of residence, you select something like Japan in there, because I think there's going to be a lot of games that you find in that area. That's the prep that you have to do. And then on the actual Switch itself, what you would do is you would go into the, let me see here, let me sync this up. You would go into wherever you have to go to add a new account.
Oh, I can show you that on mine. Here,
okay,
do
do
this
that,
out of the way. So in order to add a new account, add user. Mine is not connected to the internet, so that'll actually slow this down. But it can be as easy as...
Yeah, selecting the profile image, you give it a name of some sort, and maybe this is, again, like maybe it's an obvious name, like that determines just by glancing at it.
But right here at this point, now we have link a Nintendo account. If this was already on the internet, mine is not connected to the internet. I'm really good at prep. If this is connected to the internet, then that will, at that point, link it up together, and your system will be able to get onto that region's eShop.
So you're saying the profile that you just created on here, using this links up to the profile that you created, the actual Nintendo account that's linked to the Japan marketplace.
Correct.
And then once that's done, that actually changes the look and feel of your experience too, because it pulls in all that content, right?
Right. So one example of things that'll change is we'll go to the News tab, and I can choose on my system Japanese posts.
Oh.
So you can learn, and that
of course
means,
you can read Japanese, right, Sam?
All day, every day. And you can select which things in news. But here's one thing that I think is really interesting. Now, this is a pretty recent addition here, the Nintendo Entertainment System app that is part of the new paid Nintendo Online service, which we'll talk about. But you'll notice right here, I have the Japanese one. With the Famicom controllers.
Yes.
And I don't need to go to my Japanese account, which is that one. I can just go to my American one with my bug eyes, and it will take a second to load, and boom, I am in the Japanese version of the NES. And I'm able
look
to...
at all those games that you would not have seen.
Well, these are actually the same games.
Are they?
With the Japanese boxes. But one thing that's sort of interesting, I'll highlight one right here. Now, that Legend of Zelda box right there is a different shape because it's a disk system game, which means it plays slightly different music than the American version. It's not that big of a difference right now, but that's still kind of a fun little trick you can do. But more importantly, the Japanese eShop gives you options for other games, free demos of games that aren't necessarily out here.
Right.
Some Dragon Quest stuff, for one example. There's like a demo of a Dragon Quest game that's not out in the States. There's other Japan exclusive things. The biggest thing is that you'll need to find ways to load yen into your Japanese account to buy games. But you can do that. You can go on Amazon and buy Japanese gift cards, load them into your account. You can use a credit card and load that there. There's ways to get your money into another nationality's account system and buy those games if you want to go that far. And also, you'll get the different versions. If you bought the American one, you can then download the Japanese version. There's ways, there's just different things you can do, and it doesn't care. Nintendo is happy to take your money no matter which region you're in.
I love it because that's so different from the way it was when when I had the NES, when I had the Super Nintendo. You always heard, and of course the internet didn't exist in those days, definitely not to the strength that it does now. So you knew that there were Japanese games and import games that you couldn't play because your console, even if you had a
region
copy of
locks,
yeah,
or like the cartridge had a little different slot. You had to do something like that.
You knew there was this world of games that you just couldn't tap into, and I just always wanted to, and now you can so easily.
And just a reminder, you can take these little cartridges from anywhere in the world, and they'll work in any Switch.
That's awesome.
This could be from Europe. It wouldn't matter.
That is amazing. All right, so we've got a whole lot more to dive into. We're going to take a break and thank the sponsor of this episode, and then we're going to get into kind of how these systems do as media servers, media entertainment devices, not just games, but content. But first, let's thank the sponsor of this episode of Know How, and that's ExpressVPN. There's a whole lot that technology is making life easier. Internet of Things, of course, is one. You heard all about that for the last 3 months. Now we can take control of thermostats remotely, or get updates from our fridge on what food we need to restock. But increased convenience, as you well know, probably by now, it comes at a price. An unprotected IoT device is a goldmine for hackers. Many devices were not built with security in mind. And to protect yourself, you can load on ExpressVPN. It's an app that you can load onto your routers, actually. Makes it super simple for you to connect directly to it. ExpressVPN runs a secure VPN directly on your router, which encrypts internet data for every device on your home network. ExpressVPN is the only VPN provider that we trust with protecting all of our devices. The ExpressVPN app for routers is super easy to set up. Or you can just purchase a router with the firmware pre-installed. That makes it even easier. Every device gets ExpressVPN protection the moment that it connects to your router. So you're basically putting the VPN at the source, and everything connects through that. And so as a result, they're all protected. An ExpressVPN subscription also comes with apps for computers, smartphones, and tablets. I have it running on my phone and my desktop, giving you on-the-go protection. ExpressVPN secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and also hiding your public IP address. And what's even better, it costs less than $7 a month. So take back your internet privacy today and find out how you can get 3 months free with a 1-year package at expressvpn.com/knowhow. That's expressvpn.com/knowhow for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Make sure and visit expressvpn.com/knowhow to learn more, and we thank ExpressVPN for their support. All right, so thought we would kind of dive into, these systems, yes, they're gaming systems, but they're also used for so many more things. And I think the alternative use case for these historically, or at least over the past few generations of consoles especially, has been as media centers. I have a PS3 at home. I bought it years ago. I never bought a single game for it, even though I planned to, but really it's just my entertainment center system. It just runs all of my media, and that's great use for it.
I remember when it was a big deal, the Wii introduced a Netflix app, people went insane. I remember Xbox 360 reported that Netflix was one of its top, if not the top most used game/app on Xbox Live. We're here today now with 3 modern systems that each take a different look at media streaming because everything's changed. Your phone can stream things, your TV can stream things. So it's sort of interesting to answer the question of what can you stream on this dedicated box that's plugged into your TV. Maybe you want to watch Netflix on each of these devices. Can you do that? So I think what's interesting is the shortest version of this conversation is that if you want to watch media on a gaming console, Xbox One is king. When Xbox One first launched, there was a lot of hullabaloo about a lot of weird stuff that Microsoft wanted you to do with it, particularly Kinect. Come on. But their emphasis on media apps was a big one that, in my opinion, paid off. There's so many different ways to watch content on an Xbox, whether you're streaming it through a paid service, whether you're streaming it from your own computer, or lots of other methods. PlayStation 4 is kind of equivalent to a smart TV. There's some apps, but not every single one. And then Nintendo's being Nintendo with the Switch. In short, what you got from the Wii U, you're not getting from the Switch. The Wii U had a dedicated TV button. The Switch doesn't have a lot of functionality.
Why is that? It really seems, like we were talking about this earlier, it seems like a reaction to the Wii U. Was the media capabilities of the Wii U just something that Nintendo expected would be a big deal, but they realized people just weren't using it, and then it's like, oh, well, if no one's using it, then why include it? And by the way, Switch is doing awesome, so it's not like that's really hurt the system in any way.
I think what happened was they were really focused on that TV button, that you could press TV and it would be a guide to all the different things you watch. But it took Nintendo so long to roll out each different piece of that puzzle, and by the time it all kind of came together, the Wii U was tanking, people were not flocking to it. I know people love having that as a second screen device with a TV, and certainly people used it anecdotally, but the Switch was absolutely them saying, we've got to try something totally different. And that means as a TV watching hub, it falls by the wayside. But I think in terms of really digging in, we should talk about all the different stuff that you can do with an Xbox.
Sure.
I think one really interesting thing that I would like to point out, because when you go into your Xbox One and you go through all of the different apps that are available, you have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Video, a lot of the big heavy hitters are there. But one app that I find really interesting is the Media app. That's just the default Microsoft app. It includes support for, God, 24 formats at least. It'll even do an animated GIF/GIF, depending on how you pronounce that. If you've got WMA files, if you've got MKV files, so many different formats that you can you can have them running either from a DLNA media server or from a USB stick that you can just plug that in and play. People who review that app will mention certain types of media don't necessarily run perfectly from it, but no other system supports that many formats plugged in via USB. You can do that with PlayStation 4, but not nearly as many as you can on Xbox One.
And that support is baked in from the onset, right? Like, because we also talked, it's a very extensible system, third-party apps that kind of fill in the gaps, but you're talking at a baseline, like I'm looking at a list of probably 25, 30 different media file formats. Definitely all of the ones that you're probably going to want to do
along with
are already included there, like out of the box.
Right, and all those old VHS rips that you downloaded back in the late 90s in college. Your Syphil and Ollie rips. This is what I like to talk. I love Syphil and Ollie. Yeah, you've got these options. Additionally, though, like Plex, I think is a really interesting example that's very popular, where you're going to be able to download that from that Xbox One store interface. You just have to look that up and grab it. And then what's interesting is anything that's on Windows 10 in that UWP format, if it's a media player, you can probably download it to your Xbox One. That doesn't mean that's as good as some of the bigger dogs, but you just have a lot of options. If for any reason any format isn't there on the default player, isn't there on PS4, certainly isn't there on Switch, then you sort of have this way to go. So that's sort of interesting. You do have to sort of dive around a bit. Even that default media app I'm talking about, you still have to download it. It doesn't just come on an Xbox. And so you'll have to just type in the store media player and look for the icon that is the most correct. So Microsoft does make you jump through that one hoop. And that's about it.
Yeah, it's a single hoop. And it's not a hoop that you're not already, that won't make much sense, because you probably have already done this with a million other apps and games anyways. Downloading is very easy, so of course you would find a media app.
Now, let's say you're interested in disc media support. Again, that's Xbox One's strength. PlayStation came forward and said you can watch Blu-ray movies, but if you want to go bigger, if you want to do 4K Blu-ray, if you want to do 4K HDR Blu-ray, only Xbox One will do that. And you'll need either the Xbox One S or the Xbox One X. When you go in either of those camps, you unlock support for 4K Blu-rays. And depending on where you live, if you've got bandwidth caps, if you have slow bandwidth, but you also really just want to have that most pristine image possible.
You've got a 120-inch 4K UHD TV.
Yeah, you know, that artifacting will appear if you're on a Netflix streaming plan. You can pay up for that 4K Netflix plan. It looks great, but you know, the purest cinephiles are going to notice those little bits of color banding and that weird stuff, and you don't want that, especially in the HDR space, when that color richness really matters. So that is a consideration. Now, maybe in 2 or 3 years, we'll laugh and go, why would anyone get discs for 4K? They solved the bandwidth and blah, blah, blah. But for the here and now, if you want guaranteed, oh my goodness results from that combination of 4K and a game system, Xbox One, but you have to do the S or the X. They'll both give you 4K video with those discs. Now, for further stuff about the differences between the S and the X, that's a gaming side thing. But just for now, for media, both of those will do the trick.
Well, in the S, I'm seeing $300. Is that the pretty standard price for the S? Which...
And every once in a while, I have seen reports from people about some weird Blu-ray playback issues with the S. I recommend, if you are interested in doing the Xbox One S, it is affordable, but just make sure you test out some Blu-ray movies. Okay. If there's an issue, take it back to the store, because that is an anecdotal, not scientific thing about Xbox One S and X in terms of movies. Make sure you test that before that warranty runs out, before you can take it back.
And another important thing on the Xbox One side of things when it comes to media, it has that handy little pass-through port in the back, as well as, you know, support for the One Guide, DVR, all this stuff that, you know, not just the media formats that you're downloading, but also like it really is designed to work as a live TV kind of pass-through source.
Absolutely. If you've got a cable box, Xbox One is trying to say, let's combine it all.
That's sweet.
It's an option. I'm still, honestly, I still prefer switching input. I don't necessarily like having everything through the Xbox. But if you're the kind of person who has an old Kinect, who wants to talk to your Kinect, I mean, that's still out there. They still have adapters. I know people who still do it, especially now, God, Alexa support with Kinect. That is a thing. If you're into that ecosystem, that is an option. I'm not saying it's the best one, but it's there.
But it's there. And then PS4, you kind of mentioned earlier, like this is really, like there's a lot of these apps and stuff that you can find for PS4, but really what you're getting out of the PS4 from a media standpoint is something that's similar to what you might already have in a smart TV or what smart TVs are offering.
Yeah, whatever. It'll take files from a USB stick, and it will take major apps. But most smart TVs have USB ports and apps built in. Some of them are more regularly updated than the ones on PS4. So, I mean, your mileage can vary. That is not a guaranteed, oh my goodness, you're going to get every streaming thing possible from PS4. So that's going to be on a app-by-app basis. You should double check and make sure you're going to get the support for the apps you're interested in. But the big dogs, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Video and the like, they're going to be there if you're an American player.
Like you're going to be able to, you're going to be able to find Plex to serve your media through and all that. And then PS4 would probably be the way to go if you really want to buy a PS4 Pro is what I'm talking about, as a media device, because that's going to give you the most capable.
So that's an interesting thing you bring up. Identical in terms of media playback.
Oh, okay.
You do not get any different media playback between a PS4 and a PS4 Pro.
And the Blu-ray, like 4K, both
you don't
of them
get
capable?
You don't get 4K Blu-ray in either.
Oh,
that's
okay.
the difference.
I misunderstood that. I thought the PS4 might have. Okay.
Nope, not at all. And that was a thing that really confused a lot of people. So that was a really awesome segue there. Again, if you want disc playback in 4K, Xbox One S or X, not the original Xbox One, and none of the PlayStations.
That's a really great way to.
And that's so interesting because Sony has sort of blazed the trail first with DVD playback on the PS2, and then with normal 1080p Blu-ray on PS3. They were very big dogs on that, but this time they said games first, not media.
And then I actually, I know PlayStation does live TV because I subscribed to this for a short bit before moving to YouTube Live. Is PlayStation View.
Yes, PlayStation View is PlayStation exclusive. That's shocking, I know. But if you want to have that live TV service on a console, you're going to want PS4, so keep that in mind.
And then, of course, the other brand that said definitely games first and not media at all is the Nintendo Switch, which you kind of already mentioned. Like, this is just really not a great device if media consumption is in your plans. They have a Hulu app. They don't even have a Netflix app, right?
Hulu.
That's it.
That's it. That's all.
Why? Like, I imagine Netflix would want to be there, and if Hulu's there, like, you can do that, right? Or does Nintendo have, pull the strings on that?
I honestly think Nintendo looked at the marketplace and said, people have smart TVs, they have other devices. Maybe they're just still using their Wii to watch Netflix. I really don't know. But they definitely, I don't know if that's Netflix's fault, if that's Nintendo's fault, but whatever the case is, Hulu's it for now. And if that changes...
I hope you like Hulu. If you got a Nintendo Switch and you want to watch anything, I hope you like Hulu. Yeah, maybe I feel like there have been some hints or some people speculating that the console might open up at some point and become more friendly in this way. It's not yet. Who knows?
I never ever bet on Nintendo being fast to a thing that I want that's connected to the internet. It might happen, but you know, it's faith.
Fair enough, fair enough. All right, so we're going to take a break and then get to the third segment. We're going to talk a little bit about the game services, because this is something that we've been hearing a lot about lately. Subscription services, you get access to all of these games. We'll kind of pick them apart piece by piece. But before we do that, let's thank the sponsor of this episode of Know How, and that is IT Pro TV. If you're already familiar with this kind of content, the style of content that we do here at Twit, and if you want this style of content but devoted to IT, there just isn't anything better than IT Pro TV. You can learn IT, pass your certs, and accelerate your career with IT Pro TV. According to Glassdoor, 15 top employers, including Google and Apple, no longer require college degrees. Instead, those companies are looking at candidates who have hands-on experience through a coding boot camp or industry-related training like IT Pro TV. From CompTIA and Cisco to EC Council and VMware, IT Pro TV has you covered with everything you need to launch or grow your IT career. And CompTIA recently named IT Pro TV its official video training partner. How about that? Over 4,000 hours of binge-worthy on-demand training. New content is added every single day. Courses are conveniently listed by category, certification, and job role. So whatever you happen to be looking for, you can find exactly the content that appeals to you. Stream IT Pro TV's courses live and on demand worldwide. You can use Chromecast, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, PC, or by using their recently updated iOS or Android apps. And if you manage a team, IT Pro TV offers flexible online training for IT teams of all sizes. You can keep your team's skills up to date with interactive training. They'll actually enjoy watching. Engaging hosts, presenting information in a talk show format. Like I said, very familiar to you guys. You'll have full control over your team's training schedule and can track your team's results via IT Pro TV's Pro Portal. So you can see metrics like logins, viewing time, courses viewed, tracks completed, and so much more. Join the more than 100,000 IT Pro TV members today. You can visit itpro.tv/knowhow. If you go there, you're going to learn more about IT Pro TV's team solution and to request a free team trial. Or you can sign up for an individual monthly membership with a free 7-day trial at itpro.tv/knowhow. Use code KNOWHOW30 and you'll receive 30% off your subscription for the lifetime of your active subscription. Standard subscriptions are normally $570 a year, but you only pay $399 when you go to itpro.tv/knowhow and use code KNOWHOW30. Flexible training, binge-worthy content, life-changing results. That's IT Pro TV, and check it out for yourself. And we thank IT Pro TV for their support of Know How. All right, rounding things out, we've got game services. This is one of those features, you know, I imagine very often throughout the course of this series that we're doing, I'm going to out myself as like firmly locked into the retro age of gaming. But when I was young, this would have been a dream. Like when I was, when I had a Super Nintendo, to be able to have some sort of like Game Pass where for a certain fee, games are just fed into it monthly and you just get access, like that just sounds like a dream come true. And they're all doing it.
Well, too bad you didn't have a Sega Genesis and the Sega Channel era. That was a thing on the Genesis. Yes.
I had a Genesis, but I didn't realize.
Yeah, you had to be in a certain region of the United States. If you had a Super Nintendo, or in Japan, a Super Famicom, you could have gotten the Satellaview, which had its own satellite network. These are things essentially that have been bubbling up for years. But yeah, you didn't heir about them, but you hear about the stuff now.
Now we've got so much more infrastructure.
Absolutely, all over the world.
To support it.
As opposed to Japan, which is just connected right into their ears. But yeah, now every single major system we've mentioned has a streaming option, or I'm sorry, a sort of subscription option, some streaming, some not. And that can create some confusion. What do you pay and what do you get? So it's sort of interesting to break down with each. So let me know, what are you interested in there?
Well, I mean, let's start with Xbox One. That seems to be leading, all of these segments so far. They've got Game Pass, and they all kind of take a different approach, but this is kind of like Netflix for video games if you want to compare it against a service that we're all pretty used to. What do you think of this? Are you a subscriber? Do you think it's worth the money? What do you think?
It's interesting because we've got two things that are on Xbox, and Xbox Game Pass is the newer of these two, where you can pay $10 a month. You can pay more for that there's yearly subscription amounts as well. And you get downloadable access to a giant library of games. You have to check in online on a regular basis to continue proving that you're a subscriber. But at that point, you're not streaming it from a server. You're playing the game from your own system, which means you don't have to deal with latency or slowdown or any sort of chunky looking graphics. And you get a pretty large library, over 100 games at any given time. Wow. And if you decide that you really like one of the games that you played on Game Pass and you want to own it permanently, you can buy it while it's in the Game Pass section.
Oh, and you get like a discount?
Correct. You get a discount depending on the game. Now, the catch is that not all games stay in Xbox Game Pass forever. You may have a game that's on Game Pass for 6 months, 3 months, a full year. And you tend to not find out until that sort of 30 days notice, which is very similar to Netflix. Netflix will just have stuff vanish at a random time.
Right.
Same thing with Xbox Game Pass. So you have to sort of be vigilant. At that moment, you have that opportunity to take advantage of that Game Pass discount and say, all right, I'm going to pay to keep this one game that I really liked. But goodness, $10 a month to have unlimited access to so many games is, especially if you're a younger gamer who has a limited allowance. I spent more than that on game rentals when I was in high school.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to compare it to. If game rentals, like not everybody feels like they need to own the game because let's be real, some games you might get so far through it that you solve it, you don't feel like some games just don't lend themselves to I'm going to hold on to this and solve it again someday. Right. You get through it, you've had that experience, you move on, and so a lot of people liked game rentals for that very reason. This seems like a great alternative. You get used to paying $10 a month. And you just get a constant stream.
And it's less if you do the full year version. You also have the option of Xbox Live Gold. This can be a little confusing because they are currently separate services. That may change. We've heard little rumbles, but nothing definitive. But for now, Xbox Live Gold can cost you either a monthly, 3-month, or annual amount. The annual amount is $60 a year. What this does is every month you get an average of 2 Xbox One games and 2 backwards compatible Xbox 360 games that will run on your Xbox One. So that will unlock 4 games a month for that, however long you're using it. Plus, it will let you play games online, which can be very frustrating for some people who are used to the world of PC gaming. Newsflash, every single console we're talking about now charges you to play in online games with a few exceptions. So be ready for that. But at least all 3 systems offer you some sort of free game when you're paying into that. And if we move into PlayStation, we have a similar set of services. We have PlayStation Plus. That is very much like Xbox Live Gold. You are paying $10 a month, or I believe $60 a year for the full year. That's going to unlock a certain number of games per month that are yours to keep. Now again, with Xbox Live Gold, those are games that you get to keep forever. Same with PlayStation Plus. As long as you're a subscriber that month and claim the game, that's yours forever, plus online multiplayer. So, and as we talked about earlier, some of the game sharing features require PlayStation Plus. In addition, there's PlayStation Now. PlayStation Now is a little like Xbox Game Pass in that you have this giant library of a bunch of old and modern games that you can access. Only these are a mix of downloadable and streaming. Depending on the game, you might be able to download the full version so you don't have to deal with any streaming latency, but other games require being played from the cloud. And that'll save you space on your hard drive, but it'll cost you in sort of the streaming and latency and artifacts visually.
How noticeable is that, those latency issues?
It depends on your connection. I find it's ultimately pretty playable, especially for the not precise games, but something like Street Fighter can be pretty tough. If you've got to get that exact frame-by-frame perfect stuff, if you're doing cancels, if you're full-on Street Fighter, you're going to want the local version. I believe, ultimately, Xbox Game Pass, what it does, is better as a result because it's all downloadable. Also, Xbox Game Pass, many more new games and modern games. In fact, most every Microsoft first-party game, Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, I believe Forza Horizon 4, which I'm not sure if it'll be out yet by the time this goes live, but games like that that you've heard of that are first-party games, those will be day and date if you're on Xbox Game Pass. That's pretty big.
That's awesome.
And PlayStation Now does not offer you that sort of brand new. God of War, the newest one, didn't come out on PlayStation Now at the same time. Same thing with Spider-Man, games like that. So that's sort of a divide where Microsoft is saying our Game Pass is a little hotter than PlayStation Now.
Well, and it seems like their approach is a little different in also, I mean, in a number of ways, but the PlayStation Now seems to just continually add to that library. Like now it's up to 650 plus titles. Like it doesn't seem like they're really kind of getting rid of, they're just adding to this permanent library over time. So it wouldn't behoove them to add the game that literally just released this week. Whereas in the case of the Xbox One Game Pass, they're kind of replacing that content. So they can feature something initially and then maybe it's not there for forever and ever.
And PlayStation Now does have older game systems compatibility, PS3, even PS2.
Like
so if you want to go into that older tier of stuff, PlayStation Now may be your best bet. We would be using all of our episode's time to list out every single game on these, so you really do want to go and find those specific libraries as of right now, meaning when you're about to throw that money down, especially with Xbox Game Pass, it could vary within 30 days. So be mindful of that.
And then if your jam is retro gaming, then Nintendo seems to have have that box checked. And this is actually a relatively newly released service.
Oh yeah, this is only
Switch Online.
Yeah, this was only within a few days of us hanging out and meeting up. Was that Nintendo Switch Online launched, which includes among its services the NES collection. As of press time, as of us recording this, 20 games can be played from the old NES. Mostly games you've heard of. We've got Legend of Zelda, Super Mario 1, Super Mario 3, Dr. Mario, a personal favorite, River City Ransom. You know, that was an RPG where you punch dudes in the face. In the 80s, that was a big deal. So you've got, and that selection is going to grow every month, is what Nintendo says.
So they're not going to filter out to replace, they're just going to add to.
We don't know. We're still waiting for a lot of information. These games could vanish, but the idea is the longer you're subscribing, more of these games will pile up. About 3 a month is what they're saying for now until the end of 2018, and that can change. Now, that $20 a year, that's $20 a year for this access.
So that's not too much.
Which is for those retro games and for online play, meaning if you want to play modern games like Splatoon 2 or ARMS or Mario Kart 8, those used to be you could play them online for free, no longer. Now you need to pay $20 a year or $4 a month if you just want to dip your toes in and try it out. Those classic NES games, I forgot to mention, there's an interesting new tweak. You can play them as 2-player games online. As in, you can take a game like Super Mario 3, which had a take-turns 2-player mode, and you can play that online with a friend, and when you are not playing, you can use your control stick to point at things on the screen. So you can tell your friend, no, go over there, go over there.
Okay.
And you can use, you have to use a smartphone in order to actually talk out loud at that point.
That's right, that is a strange.
So there's a little bit of that sort of wrinkle. You can't just plug in a headset. You have to have the Nintendo Switch Online app, which is both on iOS and Android. That will then interface with your Switch as long as you enter in your Nintendo account details and all that. Yeah. And then you and your friend will be able to talk with your smartphone here and your Switch there. So there's that little bit of complication. But there's other perks with Nintendo Switch Online, in particular cloud saves. So that if you, for any reason, damage or lose your Switch, you won't lose all of those save files, especially in giant games like Breath of the Wild. Some games are not compatible with this, including Splatoon 2.
That's strange.
So there's certain games that don't work with the cloud saves. They have a list up at Nintendo's site, so you want to triple check that to make sure that your beloved game, but the big quests like Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and the new Dark Souls Remastered, those are going to work with that cloud save stuff, and you definitely, it's a nice little perk to have. I wish they'd had it sooner, but really glad that we can have that sort of save game protection, because you can't back up your saves with Nintendo Switch onto your computer the way you can with Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So that's Nintendo being Nintendo.
Yeah, and it really does seem like on that service, they're going to get people through the door in 2 major big ticket ways. You're either a really big retro game fan and that's why you're paying for this, and then it's also nice to have the multiplayer thing that comes along with it, or you really have to have the multiplayer, and then having those retro games is kind of a nice bonus. And of course, cloud save or whatever, but that's smart on Nintendo's part. It's not priced so outrageously that you think twice about it. It's kind of at that price point where you're like, oh, well, yeah, okay, fine.
$20,
$20
for a full
year.
year.
Like, that's really not that bad.
Yeah, and I think that was a smart move on their part to say, okay, people are used to playing these for free on Nintendo systems.
Yeah.
So let's keep that price low. Let's give them classic games. I think there's some people who are still really mad that you can't take your purchases from other retro systems, your retro games from the Wii U or 3DS, and get them on the Switch. This is sort of a bone to be thrown for those players, but it's Nintendo being Nintendo. You'll hear me say that a lot. It's a strange company.
Well, and it very well could build itself out over time to that, right? Like you could see them spending this amount of time on NES. Why wouldn't they then level up to SNES?
Some gamer terms.
Yeah.
There you go. And that is rumored, but it's still at this point unconfirmed if we'll get Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance. We don't know. Don't bet on it. For now, we do have NES games in that service. So again, 3 different systems, 3 very different looks at what you get for spending money online. But at least Nintendo keeps it simple with only 2 options, or with only 1 app option versus 2 different apps on Xbox and PlayStation. But again, some of them give you old games, some of them give you online gaming, some of them give you new games. So take a good look at those game lists before you spend that money per month or per full year. They all have free trials. So if you're just getting a new PS4, Xbox One, or Nintendo Switch, every single one of those, PlayStation Now, Xbox Gold, Xbox Game Pass, they all have a trial. So try before you buy.
Try before you buy. I think we did it. We reached the end. Fantastic job, Sam.
I feel like having just punched a brick above my head.
Right on. Well, I'm so stoked to have you here for this. And I know this is going to be a lot of fun, this whole series on gaming. We have plans to go pretty deep in a whole bunch of different directions. Our next week's episode, is going to take a look inside of gaming rigs. So, one way is consoles. Another way, people, I know get really obsessive over the fact that they are PC gamers and not console gamers. So we're going to take a look at a gaming rig, a really nice gaming rig, pull it apart, take a look on the inside, and really kind of understand like why someone might choose to go with a gaming rig PC over consoles and try and demystify it a little bit.
And they're going to give me a screwdriver. I'm very excited.
Yes, and I'm going to leave that up to you so that I don't break things. Let's see here. For this show, you can subscribe by going to twit.tv/KH if you haven't subscribed already. Make sure and head over there. You'll find everything you need to know in order to subscribe to Know How. Links, our show notes, our past episodes, subscribe links, all that stuff. twit.tv/KH. And we post new episodes of this show every Thursday, right around 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific is when it's going to hit the feed, and I think they even play the episode because we are recording some of these in advance, so not to lift the veil a little bit too much, but that's what we're doing here. If you want, you can find us on Google+. We have an awesome community, actually, on Google+. Search for the community, look for Know How, or you can go to gplus.to/twit.KH. That'll take you there, and you can get in there and talk with other fans of Know How, nearly 12,000 other fans of the show chatting about the topics on this show and kind of getting all makery and stuff like that. It's really cool. As for Twitter, you're on Twitter. What's your Twitter ID?
@SamRed is where you can find me talking about all kinds of ridiculous ramen-related tips.
And I imagine some gaming in there as well. You also write, of course, for Ars Technica. We mentioned that before. So people should just search for your name on Ars Technica and see all the cool stuff you're writing.
If you can spell my name, you can find so much good stuff.
You can find me on Twitter as well. I'm @JasonHowell. And I want to give a big thanks to everyone here who helps out. Josh, the Mac and Josh on Twitter, if you want to find him on Twitter. But he's helping out TDing and editing this series, and we appreciate it. Burke, John Slanina, everybody helps out, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you, and thanks to you for watching. And now that you know how, go play some games. We'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.